Her daughter laughed across the table. Loud. Careless. "Let's not invite her. She never pays anyway." Elaine didn't argue. She reached for the check. Paid for every plate, every slight, every year she was taken for granted. By morning, Jessica's name was off the will, the deed, and the legacy. The dinner cost $142.88, but the real price? That was hers to set. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Elaine shifted her weight from one foot to the other, fingers curled loosely around the worn strap of her purse. The wind had that crisp, early spring bite Boston couldn't quite let go of, and her coat, beige wool with a hem she'd stitched herself, wasn't built for standing still. She glanced at the glowing restaurant sign above. Citron. One of those places where water came with lemon rind and the music was too ambient to hum. Inside, just beyond the frosted glass, she saw her daughter. Jessica was already at the hostess stand, glossy hair catching the light. She wore a belted trench coat that probably cost more than Elaine's monthly pension. Her voice floated through the cracked door, confident, lilting, loud enough to land. "Yes, party of 4, just us," Jessica said, gesturing behind her at 3 friends chatting in heels and sleek black coats. "Oh, don't worry about my mom. She was thinking of skipping anyway." Elaine didn't flinch, not visibly, but something in her chest tightened, like a coat being buttoned too high. Then Jessica laughed, that brittle, performative kind. "Honestly, she always makes things awkward. It's just easier this way." A pause. "Anyway, she never pays." Elaine inhaled sharply, not out of surprise, just calibration. She stepped forward, pressed open the heavy glass door, and walked inside. Jessica turned, smile faltering. "Oh, you made it." Elaine didn't answer. She nodded at the hostess. "I'm with them." The woman hesitated, then added another place setting. The 4th chair was wedged awkwardly at the end of the table, half blocked by a planter and barely within earshot. Elaine took it. She set her purse in her lap, folded her napkin, and looked around. The table was a blur of laughter, phone screens lighting up with filtered photos and performative clinks of glass. Jessica didn't introduce her. No one asked questions. Elaine smiled politely and ordered a side salad, water only. As the others gushed over lobster risotto and truffle fries, she picked at her greens. The lettuce was too cold. The vinaigrette tasted like nothing. "Mom," Jessica said halfway through the meal, not bothering to lower her voice, "you didn't want anything else? You always act like you're full when the bill's coming." One of her friends laughed behind a wine glass. Elaine looked at Jessica, her daughter's face sharp with foundation and highlighter, eyes already drifting back to her phone. "I'm fine," Elaine said. When the check arrived, it came in a leather folder too soft to belong to a place that served bread without butter. Jessica flipped it open, eyebrows raised. "Whew, okay, let's just split evenly. Makes it simple, right?" Elaine said nothing. The waiter looked at her, hesitant. Jessica smiled wide. "She's got it. She always keeps her wallet in a secret zipper like she's storing gold coins." Laughter again. Elaine reached slowly into her purse, pulled out her card, the same one she used for groceries, for heating bills. She laid it in the tray without a word. Jessica blinked. "Oh, wow, okay then." Nobody thanked her. As they stood to leave, Jessica kissed her cheek, air light. "Next time, let's do something more your speed, like bingo." They walked out ahead of her. Elaine stayed behind an extra minute, just long enough to look at the empty glass where her water had been. A single slice of lemon floated inside, pale and curled like something exhausted. She rose. Outside, the SUV's engine hummed to life. Jessica didn't look back. Elaine didn't wave. She opened her rideshare app and requested a pickup. As she waited, her phone buzzed with a payment notification. Her card had gone through. She tapped her screen once, opening her banking app. The numbers weren't perfect, but they were enough. She stared at the digits for a moment, then opened the documents folder on her phone. A file labeled Will, Draft 1. She tapped it open, scrolled, stopped on one name, then highlighted it. The rideshare arrived 5 minutes late, just long enough for the chill to find its way through Elaine's coat collar and into her bones. She didn't complain. She never did. The driver, a college-aged woman with chipped turquoise nails and music too soft to recognize, offered a polite nod but no conversation. Elaine preferred it that way tonight. As the car pulled from the curb, she glanced in the side mirror. Jessica's SUV turned right at the light brake, lights glowing like the last embers of something long extinguished. No one looked back. Elaine sat upright in the back seat, purse in her lap, both hands folded over the zipper like she was holding something fragile. The streetlights blinked past the window in intervals, painting silver stripes over her slacks, her palms, her wedding ring, the one she still wore even though Peter had been gone for 12 quiet years. The silence inside the car wasn't empty. It was full of echoes. Birthdays that had come and gone with e-cards sent late. Phone calls that rang once, maybe twice, before going to voicemail. Mother's Days with flowers delivered. No card, no name. She used to tell herself Jessica was busy, that grown daughters with growing careers and growing children just needed time. But time, she had learned, didn't stretch evenly across people. It shrank for some, disappeared entirely for others. They passed a bookstore where she and Jessica had once gone for author signings and cafe cocoa with too much whipped cream. Back then, Jessica's cheeks had still dimpled when she smiled. She used to ask questions. She used to laugh. Elaine blinked hard and looked away. 20 minutes later, the car pulled up to her small townhouse, a brown brick duplex tucked behind a row of bare maples. The porch light clicked on automatically. Elaine thanked the driver, stepped out, and climbed the 3 stairs with practiced care. Inside, warmth met her like a memory. Her slippers were where she'd left them, at the edge of the entry rug with fading violets. She slipped them on and shrugged off her coat, draping it over the arm of the recliner. The room was quiet, cozy, lived in. A framed photo of Jessica at prom sat beside a dusty ceramic owl that had once belonged to Elaine's mother. On the opposite shelf, a faded photo of Peter holding Jessica as a baby, her hands fisted in his collar, both of them grinning like they'd just heard the best joke in the world. Elaine paused in front of the mantel. "Don't worry," she murmured. "I'm not crying." She moved to the kitchen, filled the kettle, set it on the stove. As it warmed, she pulled out her laptop from a drawer beneath the microwave, set it on the table, opened it. The screen lit with a soft blue glow. She entered her password, the same one she'd used for years, built from the initials of people who no longer called. She clicked into her banking app. The numbers loaded, not extravagant, but enough for her needs, for winter oil, for tea and groceries, for whatever came next. She opened her documents folder, double-clicked the file. Will. Draft 1. The document appeared. Her lawyer's template still clean and professional. Jessica's name sat there, centered in bold. Default heir, only child. Elaine stared at it, then moved her cursor. Slowly, precisely. She highlighted the name, just like she had earlier, but this time she didn't hesitate. She tapped delete. The page didn't blink. It simply reshaped itself around the absence. Elaine sat back, the kettle now whistling behind her. She didn't rush to silence it, let it scream for a few seconds, long enough to fill the kitchen with something real, something earned. Then she stood, turned off the stove, and poured her tea. As the steam rose, her phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Hey, about tonight. Don't take it so personally. You're too sensitive. I'll make it up to you." Elaine stared at it for a moment, then opened a new document on her desktop. She titled it, "The Bill They Thought I'd Never Pay," and began to write. The paper bag tilted dangerously as Elaine climbed the last step to her porch. The handles, thinner than they used to be, bit into her palm. Inside, a rogue can of chickpeas knocked against the eggs. She shifted her grip. "Need a hand?" a voice called from the sidewalk. Elaine looked up, startled. A young woman jogged over, wind-tangled hair tucked under a knit beanie, earbuds swinging from one side of her neck. "I'm good," Elaine replied automatically, but her bag buckled at the bottom. The can rolled out. The girl caught it mid-bounce. Call me superhuman. Or Mia, either works. Elaine gave a tight smile. Elaine. Mia took the bag without waiting for permission and climbed the rest of the stairs. You live here? For 34 years, Elaine said. It's paid off, just not dusted often. They stepped into the warm front hall, the scent of lemonwood polish lingering faintly. Mia set the groceries on the kitchen counter like she'd been there before. I'm in Unit 5A. Next building over, she said. I've seen you on the porch. You grow basil, right? Elaine blinked. I do. Mia smiled. I knew it. I smelled it once walking by. That and rosemary. It's kind of witchy. Elaine laughed, a short, surprised sound. Witchy's a new compliment. It is if you say it like a badge. Mia leaned on the counter. You mind if I stay a sec? I've got time to kill before job number 3. Elaine tilted her head. 3? Barista, copy shop, and I dog sit for rich people who think their Yorkies understand opera. Elaine opened a cupboard. Sit, I'll make tea. As the kettle heated, Mia explored the bookshelf in the living room. You used to be a teacher? Librarian, Elaine said, back when books needed stamps and kids needed quiet. I like that, Mia said. Quiet, that meant something. Elaine poured hot water over 2 bags of cinnamon hibiscus and handed Mia a mug. She sat down across from her and asked, What are you studying? Social work, if the loans don't drown me first. Elaine nodded. Important field. Yeah, but underpaid and overassumed. Like librarians, I guess. Elaine smiled, a touch of something warm rising behind her sternum. A kind of recognition. Outside, the wind picked up, tossing dry leaves against the window. Inside, Mia was telling her about trying to write a grant proposal between latte shifts and learning to fix her own radiator because the landlord claimed YouTube was empowerment. Elaine listened, not like a parent, not like a pity audience, but like someone starved of real voices. You like cookies? She asked suddenly. Mia blinked. Does that question ever end in no? Elaine laughed again. I'll bake. Bring your boyfriend next time if you have one. Leo would love that, Mia said. He's a sucker for older women, in a respectful, pro-grandma kind of way. Elaine didn't say it, but something in her softened. She'd heard more sincerity in Mia's tone in 10 minutes than she had from her own daughter in months. They spent another half-hour talking about Boston snowstorms, overcooked rice, and books that made them cry in public. As Mia stood to leave, she hesitated at the door. Hey, your Wi-Fi network's called Librarian 42, right? Elaine raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I can help you fix it. You're on DSL, and it's basically powered by dust. Elaine stepped aside, gesturing grandly. By all means. 15 minutes later, her connection ran smoother than it had in years. You're brilliant, Elaine said. I accept cookies as payment. Mia grinned. After she left, Elaine stood at the window, watching Mia bounce down the sidewalk, beanie askew, earbuds in again. There was no performance, no angle, just someone who showed up and noticed. Elaine turned back to the kitchen, her hands finding rhythm in cookie dough she hadn't planned to make that day. Her laptop pinged from the other room, an email from her attorney. Revised will template ready. Let me know when you're ready to proceed. Elaine wiped her hands and walked slowly to the screen. Her reflection blinked in the black monitor. Then she clicked, reply. Subject, let's begin. The living room was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional creak of the floorboards, old house murmurs that had long since stopped startling Elaine. She sat cross-legged on the rug, 2 photo albums open in front of her, a pair of reading glasses low on her nose, and a half cup of tea cooling beside her. The album pages crackled faintly as she turned them, plastic sheets yellowed at the edges, curling just enough to snag the tips of her fingers. First dance. Jessica, 1993, the caption read in her tidy script, a little slanted, a little hopeful. Jessica, in a navy blue dress, braces just off, clutching her date's arm like she wasn't sure how far to lean. Elaine ran a thumb over the image. She remembered the dress shopping, 3 stores, 2 tears, and 1 proud spin in the mirror that made the hours worth it. She turned the page. Lost tooth. Jessica on the porch steps. gap-toothed and gummy, holding up a crumpled dollar bill like a trophy. Elaine had drawn a tiny tooth fairy crown in the corner of the photo sleeve, just ink and whimsy. Then, homecoming queen. Jessica in a tiara, surrounded by friends, smile beaming like the flash was made just for her. Elaine blinked, not from tears, just long enough to admit something quietly to herself. Jessica hadn't asked to see these in over a decade. At Christmases, she'd glance past them on the bookshelf. On birthdays, she'd post her own filtered baby photos on Instagram with captions like, "Thanks for making me fierce, Mom," and never once tagged Elaine. She hadn't asked for copies. She hadn't remembered the names of the friends in the photos. She hadn't noticed when one album spine cracked clean through and Elaine had quietly repaired it with library tape. Elaine set her mug down and leaned forward. With careful fingers, she slid one photo from its sleeve, Jessica in her 8th grade play, wearing a felt crown too big for her head. The back was labeled Jessica, the Kind Queen, 2001. She crossed the name out gently with a pen. Beneath it she wrote, "Donated to the Community Theater Archive." Still smiling. Another photo, Jessica with a chocolate-smeared grin, birthday candles mid-blow. Elaine peeled it out. She held it in her palm a moment. Then wrote, "Neighbor's favorite, Ms. Connolly loved this one." One by one, she moved through the albums, relabeling them not with bitterness, but with clarity. She wasn't erasing history. She was redistributing it, disentangling it. A stack began to grow. One folder labeled "For Donation," another "For Mia," if she wants them. She left some photos blank. Not every memory needed closure. Eventually, she reached the final page in the album marked 1998 to 2002. Tucked in the back sleeve was a hand-drawn Mother's Day card in childish pencil. "I love you more than books. That's how you know it's real. Jessica, age 6. Elaine didn't cross that one out. She slid it into a small envelope and placed it in a drawer. She didn't need to display it. She just needed to keep it. Her knees creaked as she stood. She gathered the albums into piles and placed them gently on the kitchen table. The tea had gone cold. She dumped it, rinsed the cup, and returned to the table, where one manila folder sat beside a closed pen. Inside, the revised will template. Elaine opened it. No music swelled, no thunder cracked, just paper, just facts. Jessica's name was still gone. Elaine reached for the pen. Then the doorbell rang. Not loud, just a single chime. She froze, pen uncapped in her hand, breath caught in her throat like a ribbon tugged too tight. Because no one ever rang the doorbell without texting first, and Jessica never rang at all. Elaine didn't answer the door. She stood just to the left of it, heartbeat steady, breath even. After one soft knock, there'd been silence. No footsteps down the stairs. No voice calling her name. 5 minutes passed before she heard a car engine rev and fade into the street beyond. She returned to the kitchen, capped the pen, and slid the manila folder back into the drawer. She wouldn't sign anything tonight, not on a tremor of adrenaline. Stillness deserved precision. She was pouring herself a fresh cup of tea when the phone rang. Jessica. Elaine stared at the name on the screen for 3 full rings before she picked up. "Hi, Mom." Jessica's voice was syrupy, overly bright, the kind of cheer that came from someone who'd rehearsed it. "You good?" "I'm upright," Elaine replied. A pause. "Great. So, hey, do you have a second? I have this thing. It's nothing crazy, just a tiny favor." Elaine moved the mug to her lips but didn't sip. "Go on." "So, Ben and I are closing on the cabin. You know, the ski place in Killington?" "I wasn't aware." "Well, anyway, our cash flow's tight with the down payment and a few little renovations, just cosmetic stuff, and the bank needs a cosigner for a bridge loan. It's just temporary, literally 3 months. You'd never even see a bill. It's more of a formality." Elaine traced the rim of her mug with one finger. "A cabin, you said?" "Yeah, you should see the kitchen. It's got this massive stone island and a wine chiller built into the wall. We're going to do long weekends up there with the girls. Self-care, you know?" Elaine nodded to no one. "And you need me to cosign." "Just for the paperwork," Jessica said quickly. "Honestly, it's stupid they even require it. I told Ben we could probably just. She stopped herself, then softened her voice. But then I thought of you. I mean, you're not using your credit, right? Elaine smiled faintly. Do you even know what my mortgage balance is? Jessica laughed. Oh, Mom, I'm sure it's nothing. That place is practically vintage. It's paid off. Exactly. You've always been good with money. That's why you'll leave it all to me someday anyway, right? Might as well help now. Elaine set the mug down. Let me think about it. Jessica sighed with relief. Perfect. I'll send over the docs tonight. Just skim them. And thank you. Seriously. You're the best. The line clicked off before Elaine could say goodbye. She stared at the phone a moment longer, then tapped her email app. New message from Roth. Subject: Final revision options for will attachment, Literacy Foundation, estate addendum.pdf. Elaine opened it. There, in clean black type, sat the formal draft redirecting 40% of her estate to a local literacy foundation, the same one that had accepted her late husband Peter's rare book collection 10 years prior, still shelved under a plaque that read, "In memory of a quiet man who believed in loud ideas." Elaine scrolled to the clause that had once named Jessica as sole heir. The space was now shared, not just with the foundation, but with future students and readers and thinkers she'd never meet. She felt no guilt, only clarity. She typed a short reply. Proceed with filing. Also, confirm if we can redirect royalties from future publication rights. Then she paused, opened a new window, searched. Citrine Restaurant Receipt, PDF download. She found it, downloaded it, printed a single copy. Elaine slid it into a folder labeled Jessica, Final Records. She added a sticky note. This was the moment I paid more than the bill. She returned to the kitchen, capped the pen, and slid the manila folder back into the drawer. She wouldn't sign anything tonight, not on a tremor of adrenaline. Stillness deserved precision. She was pouring herself a fresh cup of tea when the phone rang. Jessica. Elaine stared at the name on the screen for 3 full rings before she picked up. Hi, Mom. Jessica's voice was syrupy, overly bright, the kind of cheer that came from someone who'd rehearsed it. You good? I'm upright, Elaine replied. A pause. Great. So, hey, do you have a second? I have this thing, it's nothing crazy, just a tiny favor. Elaine moved the mug to her lips, but didn't sip. Go on. So Ben and I are closing on the cabin, the ski place in Killington? I wasn't aware. Well, anyway, our cash flow's tight with the down payment and a few little renovations, just cosmetic stuff, and the bank needs a cosigner for a bridge loan. It's just temporary, literally 3 months. You'd never even see a bill. It's more of a formality. Elaine traced the rim of her mug with one finger. A cabin, you said. Yeah, you should see the kitchen. It's got this massive stone island and a wine chiller built into the wall. We're going to do long weekends up there with the girls. Self-care, you know? Elaine nodded to no one. And you need me to co-sign. Just for the paperwork, Jessica said quickly. Honestly, it's stupid they even require it. I told Ben we could probably just. She stopped herself, then softened her voice. But then I thought of you. I mean, you're not using your credit, right? Elaine smiled faintly. Do you even know what my mortgage balance is? Jessica laughed. Oh, Mom, I'm sure it's nothing. That place is practically vintage. It's paid off. Exactly. You've always been good with money. That's why you'll leave it all to me someday anyway, right? Might as well help now. Elaine set the mug down. Let me think about it. Jessica sighed with relief. Perfect. I'll send over the docs tonight, just skim them. And thank you. Seriously, you're the best. The line clicked off before Elaine could say goodbye. She stared at the phone a moment longer, then tapped her email app. New message from Roth. Subject: Final revision options for will attachment, Literacy Foundation, estate addendum.pdf. Elaine opened it. There, in clean black type, sat the formal draft redirecting 40% of her estate to a local literacy foundation, the same one that had accepted her late husband Peter's rare book collection 10 years prior, still shelved under a plaque that read, "In memory of a quiet man who believed in loud ideas." Elaine scrolled to the clause that had once named Jessica as sole heir. The space was now shared, Not just with the foundation, but with future students and readers and thinkers she'd never meet. She felt no guilt, only clarity. She typed a short reply. Proceed with filing. Also confirm if we can redirect royalties from future publication rights. Then she paused, opened a new window, searched. Citrine Restaurant Receipt, PDF download. She found it, downloaded it, printed a single copy. Elaine slid it into a folder labeled Jessica, Final Records. She added a sticky note. This was the moment I paid more than the bill. She returned to the kitchen, folded the will draft into a new envelope, and laid it beside her wedding photo. Outside, the wind pressed softly against the window, the kind of wind that whispered change. Not dramatic, but certain. The kettle began to boil again. Elaine didn't move to stop it. Not yet. She closed her eyes, listening to the steam build, and smiled like someone who had finally read the last sentence of a story and knew exactly what the next one would begin with. The scent of butter and lemon zest drifted through Elaine's kitchen, curling at the corners of the ceiling fan, warm and sharp like something remembered too clearly. She wiped powdered sugar from her wrist and turned toward the window just as the knock came. 2 quick raps and a muffled voice. It smells illegal in there, like Grandma's hiding a bakery empire. Elaine opened the door. Mia stood there, arms full of library books, hair escaping from a messy braid. She stepped inside without waiting and set the stack down on the table like she belonged. A habit forming naturally, like ivy on brick. I brought the good ones, Mia said, tapping the top of the pile. Real tearjerkers, and one about herbal tea I regret deeply but thought you'd laugh at. Elaine raised an eyebrow. Anything that calls chamomile dangerously seductive deserves mockery. Mia grinned, tugged off her hoodie, and followed Elaine to the stove. They cooked together, falling into a rhythm neither had spoken aloud. Chopping, stirring, taste testing with the kind of trust built not on time, but on listening. I used to want to be a baker, Mia said suddenly, dusting her hands with flour. Then a veterinarian, then a screenwriter. Now I just want to pay rent without 3 jobs. Elaine glanced over. And the social work degree? Mia shrugged. Still the plan. Just slower than I thought. Sometimes I feel like I'm living 10 lives and none of them are mine. Elaine handed her a bowl. That's not failure. That's navigation. Sounds wise, Mia said, then paused. Your husband, Peter, right? Did he always know what he wanted? Elaine smiled, eyes softening. He wanted peace and books. He believed a good library could save a life. Mia nodded. I believe that too. They poured lemon filling over the warm crust. Elaine smoothed it with the back of a spoon, then wiped her hands and crossed to the drawer near the hallway. She returned holding a folder. Inside were printed plans, foundation letters, and a short write-up with the title, The Peter E. Harland Scholarship Fund. Mia read the first page twice, then looked up. Wait, this is real? Elaine nodded. It's for students going into social work, education, library science, any quiet profession that holds up the rest of the world. Mia's hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the documents. This is incredible. I need someone to help shape the application process, Elaine said. Someone who knows how it feels to build something without a safety net. Mia blinked fast. You don't have to do this for me. I'm not. Elaine reached over and tapped the page. I'm doing it with you. Mia didn't speak for a long moment. When she finally did, her voice was low, thick. Nobody's ever asked me to build something before. Elaine said nothing. She just slid a plate of fresh-cut lemon bars between them and poured 2 glasses of milk like it was the most sacred offering she could give. They ate in silence for a while, then laughed at how sour the first bite was, then cried, not out of grief but out of relief, the kind that cracks you open quietly. As dusk deepened beyond the window, Elaine rose, walked to her laptop, and opened her banking app. She moved carefully, confirming details with the printed forms, triple-checking routing numbers. Then, transfer complete. Amount, $47,000. Memo, initial funding, PEH scholarship. She printed the confirmation and slid it into a new folder beside the will draft. Her fingers hovered for a moment over the file labeled Jessica, Final Records. But she didn't open it. Instead, she looked at Mia, who was folding napkins without being asked. "I think I finally understand something," Elaine said. "What's that?" "You don't have to pass pain down the line just because it was handed to you." Mia looked at her, eyes wide. "That's a hell of a recipe." Elaine smiled. "It gets better with age." The surprise was yelled 3 seconds too late. Elaine stepped into the bar's blaring lights with a startled blink. Not from shock, but from the sensory assault. A spotlight swung in the wrong direction. Bass pulsed through the floors like a second heartbeat. Strobe lights flickered against exposed brick walls, and a DJ called out names no one responded to. Jessica rushed forward, arms flung wide. "Mom, you didn't suspect a thing, did you?" Elaine managed a small smile. Not a thing." Jessica smelled like champagne and expensive lip gloss. Her dress sparkled. Her voice was pitched just high enough to let everyone within 5 feet know she was orchestrating joy. The crowd roared back to life, and Elaine was ushered toward a reserved table near the DJ booth. Not the main one with Jessica's co-workers, but one just off to the side, near the hallway to the restrooms. The kind of table where coats get dumped. She smoothed her blouse, took a seat, and adjusted her reading glasses. A candle flickered beside a vase of plastic tulips. A young woman in a bodycon dress leaned over from another table. "You're Jessica's mom, right? You look amazing for 70. Elaine gave a polite nod. 68. "Oh, my bad. Well, close enough." She drifted away before Elaine could reply. Someone shoved a drink menu in front of her. She declined politely and ordered a water with lemon. The music was relentless. The air smelled like lime vodka and overcooked sliders. She scanned the room, not a single familiar face from her church, her book club, her neighborhood, just glittering acquaintances of Jessica's, realtors, Pilates instructors, women who had perfected the laugh that doesn't touch the eyes. A server dropped a small plate of house salad in front of her. No dressing, no silverware. She retrieved a fork from her purse, her own, a small act of preparedness she'd never outgrown. Then came the speeches. One by one, Jessica's friends clinked glasses and took turns toasting. Not Elaine, but Jessica. To Jess, for planning everything herself. To Jess, for being the most generous daughter. To Jess, who says she's got the best genes in town. Laughter. Applause. Jessica stood next, tapping her glass with a spoon like she was emceeing a gala. "Honestly, I did this because Mom would never ask for it. She's never been good at you." "I know," celebrating herself, "but she's the reason I am who I am. She kept me grounded. She taught me frugality, discipline, emotional restraint." She giggled. "Sometimes a little too much, huh?" The crowd chuckled on cue. Elaine took another bite of salad. Still no dressing. Jessica continued. "And when things got tough, when I was working 3 jobs after college, when I needed help with the girls, Mom was always there. She kept me afloat. And now, it's my turn to return the favor." Elaine's eyes flicked toward the exit. Then the clock. Then her water glass. She finished her salad and folded her napkin neatly, smoothing the creases with care. On her way out, she paused at the table near the bar. A small tote sat underneath. Floral, unassuming. She opened it. One by one, she placed carefully wrapped packages next to select guests' chairs. Inside each, a personalized note and a small gift. A rare book, a knitted bookmark, a tin of homemade cookies. No duplicates, no extras. She passed by Jessica without pausing. No package, no note. Just a polite brush of her hand against Jessica's shoulder. Jessica turned. "Heading out?" Elaine nodded. "Thank you for the party. It was very you." Jessica grinned. "I knew you'd warm up once the vibe hit." Elaine didn't answer. She walked out without looking back. The wind outside was cool, not cruel. She pulled on her coat, paused at the curb, and checked her rideshare app. As the car pulled up, she opened her purse and touched the final envelope tucked in the inner pocket. Ivory paper, sealed in wax. The front read, "To be opened after I'm gone." Jessica dropped her heels in the hallway with a sigh loud enough to register as martyrdom. Her husband, Ben, didn't look up from the dining table, where 2 laptops and 3 piles of paper competed for space with a half-eaten bagel. She's being weird again, Jessica muttered, unclipping her earrings. Mom. Elaine. Whatever. Ben glanced over. Wasn't it her birthday? It was a surprise party. I did the whole thing. And she leaves early, doesn't touch the cake, then hands out gift bags to random people and skips me entirely. Ben raised an eyebrow. You didn't get your mom a gift either. I threw her a party. Mostly for yourself. Jessica ignored that. She opened her purse and pulled out the wax-sealed envelope Elaine had given her months ago. She waved it in the air like a prop. She gave me this, said to open it when she's gone. It's dramatic, and cryptic, and emotionally manipulative. Maybe it's just honest. Jessica rolled her eyes. She's being theatrical, always with the quiet judgment. She tossed the envelope onto the side table next to a stack of mail and unopened Amazon boxes. It landed at a tilt and stayed there, unopened. Across the city, Elaine leaned over a stack of photo prints, her index finger hovering over one from 1976. Peter sat under a tree with a book resting on his chest and their sleeping infant curled against his side. The baby's arms were flung wide like she already believed the world would catch her. Elaine slipped the photo into a scanning sleeve. Mia sat across the table, laptop open, headphones around her neck. Okay, that's the last batch. Want to do the voice notes next? Elaine nodded. Start with the final chapter. It's ready. Mia hit record on the microphone. Elaine took a steadying breath, then read aloud. Chapter 27. Paying the bill they thought I couldn't afford. Her voice didn't waver. As the words poured out, lines about inheritance, about the weight of silence, about the long-term cost of conditional love, Mia's eyes welled, but she didn't interrupt. They worked in tandem for hours, cataloging images and pairing them with memory. Mia adjusted levels, Elaine edited footnotes. They disagreed on commas and cried over one paragraph about a forgotten Sunday afternoon picnic. It was the kind of collaboration that didn't need defining. At dusk, Elaine folded her sweater over her shoulders and said, "Come with me. I want to show you something." They walked the 4 blocks in silence, past shuttered shops and sleepy brownstones, until they reached the Literacy Foundation's brick facade. The building looked unremarkable. Glass doors, brass fixtures, a small courtyard garden tucked in front. But when Elaine led Mia around the side, a granite wall greeted them in soft gray. Names etched in order of contribution, some large, some small, some grouped under families. Midway down, Elaine ran her fingers along one. Peter E. Harland. In memory of a quiet man who believed in loud ideas, Mia exhaled. He'd be proud. Elaine nodded. He already was. They stood there a long moment, then turned for home. Back in her condo, Jessica scrolled through banking apps, her nails tapping a jittery rhythm on the screen. The audit for her business was real. And the line of credit she'd banked on? Declined. She called the estate lawyer again, left a third voicemail. Just checking to confirm, Moms. Paperwork is still standard. I mean, nothing's been filed recently, right? We're looking at things financially, and She paused. I just need to know what I'm working with. She didn't notice that the unopened envelope had slipped between magazines on the side table. She didn't see the email in her inbox from the Literacy Foundation's media director. Subject line, "Thank you for your family's generous support." She only saw the number on her bank app shrinking. And for the first time in years, Jessica felt something she couldn't dress up or scroll away from. She wasn't the daughter Elaine had been waiting for, and the door had quietly closed. The phone rang at 8:42 p.m. Elaine nearly didn't answer, not out of spite but because she was mid-sentence. Her pen hovered over the edge of a paragraph, caught in the rhythm of a thought that had finally stopped running. Then the screen lit up. Jessica. Elaine capped the pen, let it ring twice more, then tapped accept and held the phone to her ear without a word. "Hi, Mom." Jessica's voice landed in her ear like forced sunshine, bright, brittle, and about 2 octaves too high. Wow, it's been a minute, huh?" Elaine said nothing. Jessica rushed in. "I've just been thinking a lot lately. About everything, United States, the past, how we drifted. I mean, life gets messy, right?" Elaine waited. The silence on her end stretched until Jessica filled it again. I want to reconnect. I really do. You're my mom. We should talk more. Maybe do lunch? I don't want to keep letting time get away from us. Elaine traced the edge of her notebook with a fingertip. You're reaching out because of the audit, aren't you? Jessica let out a half laugh. Wow. Okay. Blunt. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. Things are chaotic right now, and it's made me reevaluate. What matters, who matters, you know? Elaine leaned back in her chair. The window behind her showed nothing but streetlight haze and the faint movement of wind-blown branches. Jessica, she said quietly, what do you think matters to me? There was a pause on the line, then a carefully cautious answer. Us. Family. Legacy. Elaine's tone didn't change. You said once I'd leave it all to you anyway, that helping you now was just early math. That was, Jessica began, then shifted. I didn't mean it like that. I was stressed and stupid. I see things clearer now. Elaine folded the corner of a page in her notebook, smoothing the crease with her thumb. Do you? I want to fix things, Jessica said too quickly. You've always been so stable. I didn't realize what that cost you. I'm trying to be different now. Elaine closed her notebook. I hope you figure things out. Jessica's silence on the other end held a dozen unsaid things. Then, wait, is the will still… have you changed anything? Elaine didn't answer. Her hand rested calmly on the desk. She looked around her small living room, where photos of Peter and handwritten pages lived comfortably beside stacks of library-bound journals. The scent of lemon balm and printer ink floated in the air. Mom? I think you should be more concerned with what you're building, Elaine said softly, than what you're expecting. Jessica exhaled hard, like she'd been holding something in too long. So, that's it? You're just done with me? I'm done waiting for a version of you that sees me clearly. There was another pause, this one long, wide. I was just asking a question, Jessica said finally, voice thin. So was I. The line went quiet. Jessica hung up. Elaine lowered the phone and set it gently beside her notebook. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She reached for the envelope labeled Foundation Royalties, Beneficiary Assignment, and added a sticky note. Confirm with Roth. Include Mia's name on royalties clause. The printer whirred softly in the corner as a new form began to print. Across town, Jessica stared at her dark phone screen, thumb hovering over the call log. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she remembered. On the table behind her, the sealed envelope from Elaine still sat, now partially buried under a Pottery Barn catalog, and a bill stamped Final Notice. She didn't reach for it. Not yet. The dining table stretched farther than it used to. Elaine had borrowed extra leaves from her neighbor and pulled out the emergency chairs, the ones with unsteady legs and mismatched cushions. The centerpiece was simple: sprigs of rosemary, ivory candles, a linen runner folded once lengthwise to hide a tea stain she no longer cared about. The kitchen buzzed in soft rhythms. Mia adjusted place settings, pausing every few seconds to tap labels into tiny name cards, her handwriting loopy and careful. Elaine sliced baguettes into even portions, her joints stiff but precise. By 6 o'clock the guests had arrived. There was Marjorie from the book club, who brought apple butter and a fresh gossip column. There was Franklin, her pharmacist, who came straight from the clinic, still wearing his white coat and a backpack full of reusable Tupperware. The Literacy Foundation's director, Cora, showed up last, arms full of brochures and a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne. Can't show up empty-handed to something like this, Cora said, placing the bottle next to the roasted vegetables. Legacy deserves a toast. Elaine smiled, ushering them all to the table. They sat, not by bloodlines, but by storylines, people she'd taught, listened to, laughed with, people who had shown up, who kept showing up. Elaine took her place at the head of the table. The conversation was uneven in a comforting way. Laughter dipped in and out of the meal like birds landing and lifting again. Someone complimented the lemon bars. Someone else joked that Mia should open a bakery and name it Wi-Fi and Wisdom. Wine glasses clinked, though Elaine herself drank warm cider. Her fingers curled around the mug, absorbing the heat. Then Mia stood. "I just want to say something," she said, holding her glass. "There's family, and then there's chosen family. Tonight I think we all know the difference." A quiet murmur of agreement circled the table. Elaine smiled, a small, worn thing full of gratitude. Her eyes drifted, down the length of the table, to the chair nearest the kitchen doorway. It was unoccupied. A place card sat in front of it. Jessica. The napkin was folded, the plate clean, the silverware untouched. Elaine didn't remove it, but she didn't mourn it either. She simply looked once, then looked away. After dessert, the guests lingered. Franklin helped box up leftovers. Marjorie left a copy of a book she thought Elaine would like. Cora asked if Mia would be interested in helping with a student mentoring project. Eventually, the apartment quieted again. Elaine stood by the sink, rinsing glasses, when Mia approached with an envelope in hand. "I wrote you something," she said, almost shy. "Just because." Elaine dried her hands and took it. The envelope was pale yellow, the handwriting careful. She didn't open it yet, just nodded. "Thank you." Mia hugged her, real and close, the kind that says more than any toast ever could. When she left, Elaine sat back down at the table. The candles had burned low. One had puddled completely into the holder. The scent of rosemary had dulled to something earthy. She reached into the inner pocket of her cardigan, pulled out her pill organizer, and studied the row for the next week. She hesitated, then opened the slot for Friday and moved the pills to a sticky note on the table, just in case. Later that night, she finally opened the letter from Mia. The first line read, "You gave me the kind of map I didn't know I needed." Elaine folded it carefully, placed it inside her journal, and pressed it flat beneath the ribbon marker. Then she walked slowly to her bedroom, each step deliberate, each breath just a little heavier than it had been a week ago. She turned off the light and sat on the edge of the bed. Her legs ached, not the kind of ache that passes, the kind that warns. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. Elaine sat quietly in the exam room, her palms pressed flat against the paper-lined table. The fluorescent light above hummed, casting a pale wash over her corduroy slacks and the sleeve of her cardigan, which she'd tugged down 3 times since arriving. Dr. Halloran entered with a clipboard and the kind of practiced smile that softened news before it fell. "You were right to come in," he said gently, sitting across from her. "The scans confirm what we suspected. It's progressive. The rate looks steady, but it's not reversible." Elaine nodded once. "There are options," he added. "Aggressive ones, chemotherapy, surgery, a clinical trial maybe. And the non-aggressive option? Comfort care, symptom management, prioritizing quality." Elaine folded her hands in her lap. "Then that's what I'd like." The doctor hesitated. "You're sure?" "I don't need to live forever," she said. "Just clearly, while I'm still me." 2 days later, her apartment was unnaturally still. No music, no kettle on, just the soft rustle of paper as Elaine sorted files into 3 neat piles: legal, medical, and personal. Password sheets were retyped, handwritten notes were updated with new logins. A list labeled "What to do with my plants" sat on top of the fridge. Her cat's veterinary records were clipped with a post-it, "Likes windowsill sun, hates tuna." She paused only once, at the file labeled "Goodbye letters." She hadn't written Jessica's yet. She wasn't sure she would. There was a knock at the door. Mia. She entered hesitantly, sensing something different in the air. Less lemon zest, more something final. Elaine gestured toward the couch, her hands slower than usual. "Sit with me. I need to ask you something." Mia did. Elaine held out a form. "I need a health proxy. Someone I trust. Someone who listens when I whisper and doesn't flinch when it's not fair." Mia stared at the paper. "You mean me?" Elaine nodded. Mia's eyes filled, lips parted in disbelief. "But I don't know what I'm doing." "You don't have to know everything," Elaine said. "You just have to be there." Mia looked down at the form, then back up. "I'm honored, but I'm also scared." "Good," Elaine said softly. "That means you'll take it seriously." Mia cried then. Not a loud cry, not a messy one. Just quiet tears that fell without apology. Elaine reached over, took her hand, and placed a small, linen-wrapped bundle in her palm. "I want you to have this," she said. Mia opened it slowly. Inside was an old black typewriter, its keys slightly worn, the ribbon still inked faintly in red. A brass plate across the front read, P.E.H. Peters, Elaine explained. He wrote everything on this, letters, lists, ideas he never had time to chase. He called it his companion machine. Mia brushed a hand over the keys, reverent. Elaine added, "Now it's yours. Write something that matters." They sat together for a long while, the typewriter resting like a promise between them. As night fell, Elaine pulled a blanket over her lap. Her breathing was heavier than usual. Mia noticed, but didn't comment. Instead, she read aloud a passage from a book she'd brought, something about beginnings disguised as endings. Elaine smiled faintly, her eyes drifting closed. "That's the trick of it, isn't it?" "What is?" Mia whispered. "Not letting goodbye be the last interesting thing you say." Later, when Mia left, she paused at the door. The apartment didn't feel heavy with death. It felt prepped, prepared, like a garden in winter, resting, but alive beneath the soil. Back inside, Elaine moved slowly to her bedroom. She opened her journal, tucked Mia's health proxy form behind the cover, and wrote one final line on the last page. "The best exits are quiet, but never forgettable." The apartment was quiet again. Not in the way of absence, but in the way of waiting. Like the walls themselves were bracing for something unspoken. Elaine sat in her favorite chair, legs tucked beneath her, wool shawl looped around her shoulders. Her tea had gone cold, untouched for nearly an hour. The blinking light on the answering machine, small, red, persistent, had been there all morning. She finally pressed play. Jessica's voice came through, thinner than usual. No performance this time, no forced brightness, just breath shaped into confession. "Mom, it's me. Obviously. A long pause. She sounded like someone trying to remember how to pray. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from right now, or ever. I know that, but I'm saying it anyway, because there's no one left to say it to but you." Elaine didn't move. Her hand rested lightly on the edge of the armrest, thumb brushing fabric in slow, rhythmic circles. "I was cruel. For a long time. Not on purpose, but that doesn't matter, does it? I thought you'd always be there. I thought love was like furniture, just in the room, no matter how little I looked at it." The message crackled slightly. "And now I can't find the edges of anything. My life feels like it's unraveling thread by thread, and I don't know how to fix it. I miss you. I really do." A sniff. No sobbing, but something real. "If there's any version of you that could still talk to me, not out of obligation, not as a mother, but just as someone who remembers who I used to be, I'd take that. I'd be grateful." The message ended there. No second take, no self-defense, no pitch. Elaine stared at the machine. She didn't delete it, but she didn't reply either. Instead, she rose slowly, her knees stiff from the cold, and walked to her desk. The light through the window had dimmed to that late afternoon hush, the kind that makes everything look like a memory. She pulled out a fresh sheet of paper, the same kind Peter had once used, heavy stock, cream-colored, quiet. At the top, she wrote, "Jessica," and paused. The pen hovered just above the next line. Her hand didn't shake, but her breath caught. She could hear Jessica's voice in her mind, from a time long ago, shrieking with laughter in the backyard, begging to stay up late, whispering secrets into her father's ear. There was still a girl somewhere in that voice message, but Elaine wasn't sure that girl could survive the woman she'd become. She wrote 2 sentences, then stopped. She looked at the page, read the words back to herself, and carefully capped the pen. Instead of folding the letter, she left it open on the desk, unfinished. She placed a glass paperweight, a small blown glass sphere Peter had given her once, over the bottom corner. It didn't need to be finished. Not yet. That night, As she lay in bed, her chest rising and falling beneath the quilt Mia had helped her repair last fall, she listened to the voicemail again. Just once. Then turned off the light. Elaine died without ceremony, no hospital bed, no frantic beeping monitors, just the still hush of early morning slipping through the curtains, the faded quilt tucked beneath her chin, and her breath, quiet, then quieter, until it stopped. Mia found her at 6:43 a.m., the kettle still cold on the stove, a book left open on her lap. The page marker sat loosely between her fingers, as if she'd planned to finish the chapter after a short nap. She didn't scream. She didn't call 911 right away. She sat beside the bed and held Elaine's hand for a while, whispering things she wished she'd said the night before. Things like thank you and you were right, the recipes in the timing. Then, with trembling fingers and tear-lined cheeks, she made the calls. The lawyer's office was warm, wood-paneled, with soft lighting and a table too large for the number of chairs around it. Jessica arrived 10 minutes late, sunglasses perched high on her nose despite the cloudy day, a travel coffee cup in one hand, and the tightest version of grief money could simulate. Her black blazer still had a price tag tucked in at the hem. She gave Mia a small, practiced nod. Mia didn't return it. The lawyer, Mr. Roth, cleared his throat. I know this isn't easy. Your mother was... He paused, glancing toward Mia. A woman of remarkable clarity. He opened a leather-bound folder and began reading. The estate of Elaine Harland has been apportioned per her final directive. First, a bequest of 40% is confirmed to the Peter E. Harland Literacy Foundation, already transferred. Jessica blinked. 40%? Wait. Roth continued. To Mia Thompson, he said, his voice steady. I leave the remainder of my estate, including all royalties from my published and unpublished works, the property at 148 Juniper Avenue, personal possessions as itemized in Addendum B, and all digital archives related to the scholarship. Jessica's mouth parted. What? She's just some girl you fed lemon bars. Roth didn't look up. He turned to the final page. To my daughter Jessica, he read, I leave this truth. Silence was your choice. Jessica went pale. Roth folded the document. That concludes the reading. For a long moment, the only sound was the quiet hum of the office heater. Then Jessica spoke, her voice cracking with a cocktail of rage and disbelief. She cut me out for a charity case? Mia stood, calm, upright. She gave to someone who listened. She said simply. Jessica turned to Roth. This isn't legal. This is emotional sabotage. Roth arched a brow. The documents are notarized and valid under Massachusetts estate law. You may contest it, of course, but you'll be contesting your own mother's last, deliberate words. And given that there are saved voicemails, medical directives, and 3 years of documented estrangement, I wouldn't advise it. Jessica's eyes flashed, but no words came. She gathered her bag, her pride, and nothing else. She walked out without saying goodbye. Later that evening, Mia returned to Elaine's house. It didn't feel like inheritance. It felt like stewardship. She lit a candle in the kitchen, opened the windows to let in the evening air, then sat down at the dining table, the one they'd used for the last big dinner, and opened the journal Elaine had kept. On the last page, in small, clean script, was one final note. Mia, the world didn't give you a map, so I drew you one. Keep walking. It's yours now. Mia ran her fingers over the words and cried for the woman who never said goodbye loudly, but always left a door open, just wide enough for the right person to step through. The envelope had yellowed at the edges. Tucked between a Pottery Barn catalog and a stack of ignored bills, it had waited silently on Jessica's console table for months. The wax seal was still intact, a pressed E, faint but unmistakable. That morning, something shifted. Maybe it was the third final notice. Maybe it was the quiet after rage had burned out. Or maybe it was the way no one looked her in the eye anymore. Not her daughters, not Ben, not the bank manager who knew her by name. Jessica slid a nail under the seal and cracked it open. Inside, one page, heavy stock, cream-colored, the same kind her mother always used. The handwriting was unmistakable, strong, curved, careful. Jessica, If you're reading this, I'm gone. But you've always been late to moments that mattered, so I suppose this is fitting. Jessica sank onto the couch, envelope trembling in her hand. I want you to know I never stopped loving you. Not even when it hurt, but I stopped waiting for you to notice it. That's not the same thing as punishment. It's self-respect. You once asked if the will was still intact. It was. Just not for you. Jessica blinked hard. You see, I paid the bill you wouldn't, the one for dignity. I paid it in silences swallowed, in birthdays endured, in the ache of hearing my name said like a chore. I paid it the day you asked me to co-sign a loan and called it a favor. Jessica pressed a fist to her mouth. You inherited my smile, my sarcasm, and my appetite for strategy. But not my spine. That you left on the shelf every time you walked past someone else's pain. Still, I leave you this letter, because even now, even after everything, I believe the ability to change arrives last but not too late. There is no inheritance coming for you, only this truth. You were loved. Deeply. And you used it like an ATM. I hope someday you build something of your own. I hope you come to understand the cost of absence. And I hope, should you have the courage to grieve, you do it fully, not for what you lost, but for what you gave away. Mom Jessica didn't cry at first, not for 5 full minutes. She sat still, letter clutched in both hands, as if afraid it might disappear. Then her throat closed, and something long buried cracked. She cried without performance. No mirror, no audience, no filter. Just soundless sobs that left her curled against the couch cushion, body shaking, mascara bleeding onto upholstery that wouldn't notice. Later that day, she took a rideshare to the Literacy Foundation. The receptionist didn't recognize her. Jessica didn't introduce herself. She simply asked if the memorial wall was open to the public. It was. She stepped into the courtyard alone. The granite shimmered slightly in the winter sun, names catching the light like truths too long ignored. She scanned until she found it, Elaine Harland, for those who chose to speak quietly and mean it. Beneath that, a second name, Peter E. Harland, in memory of a quiet man who believed in loud ideas. Her name was nowhere. No daughter, no legacy tag, no dedication line, just space. Jessica stood there for a long time, her breath visible, her phone silent. She placed a single flower, a blue hydrangea, at the base of the wall, Elaine's favorite. And then, barely audible, I'm sorry. She said it like a truth too late. She didn't wait for an echo. She didn't expect one. But as she turned to leave, a student passed by with a tote bag slung over one shoulder. The scholarship's name stitched in green thread along the fabric seam, P.E.H. Scholar, speak soft, write loud. Jessica didn't speak, but her shoulders dipped, not in defeat, in acknowledgement. The memoir wasn't released with fanfare, no launch party, no press tour, no influencer box with a ribbon and a hashtag, just a quiet upload to an indie press website, a modest announcement from the Literacy Foundation, and a handwritten note taped to the door of a neighborhood bookstore. New arrival. Paying the bill. They Thought I Couldn't Afford, by Elaine Harland. A voice worth hearing. Mia handled the details herself, proofed every page, curated the cover, a black and white photo of Elaine at her kitchen table, reading glasses low on her nose, pen hovering mid-thought. She added an epilogue in soft italics. She left us the blueprints. All we had to do was build. The response was quiet at first, a few orders, then a repost by a librarian in Milwaukee, then a paragraph in a teacher's newsletter, then an article in Lit Haven titled, The Memoir That Doesn't Flinch or Beg. Within 3 weeks, the book's review page was filled. Comments from nurses, caregivers, former daughters, estranged sons, people who had been forgotten, erased, underestimated. One wrote, "This wasn't written for me, but somehow it still saw me." Jessica bought the book anonymously, paperback, used copy, shipped through a third-party seller, no inscription, no trace. She read it in bed, 1 chapter per night. Elaine's words were clinical at times, honest to the point of discomfort, but not cruel. There were no cheap metaphors, no revisionist fantasies, just a clear-eyed ledger of love given, withheld, endured. When Jessica reached the final chapter, The Cost of Conditional Love, she cried in the dark, quietly, the way her mother always had. The next morning, she took a dry erase marker and wrote 4 words on her bathroom mirror. Earn it back. J. Mia didn't know Jessica had read the memoir. She didn't need to. She was busy. The basement of the foundation had been converted into a community space, folding chairs, donated notebooks, a mismatched collection of secondhand mugs. The door sign read, "The PEH Writing Room. Speak soft. Write loud." Every Tuesday evening, local teens and seniors gathered around a long table. Mia taught prompts, hosted readings, invited guest authors from nearby colleges. She made lemon bars when she had the time, sometimes just bought Oreos when she didn't. One week, she brought out Peter's typewriter. Let the students take turns tapping out 1 word at a time, listening to the rhythm of it. "Feels like the keys remember something," one girl said. "They do," Mia replied. Spring crept back slowly. Elaine's daffodils bloomed by the front window, just as they had for 23 years. The house smelled like old books and new beginnings. Mia had moved in, but she didn't redecorate much. She kept the frames as they were, let the light fall in familiar ways. In the kitchen, a new frame appeared beside the spice rack. Inside it, a receipt. Citrine restaurant, 2 salads, 3 cocktails, 1 shared dessert. Total, $142.88. Tip, 25%. Signature, Elaine Harland. Taped to the back was the sticky note she'd once left in her folder. "This was the moment I paid more than the bill." Below the receipt, etched in the frame's matting, was a final line. She paid more than the bill. She paid attention. And the house, though quieter now, didn't feel empty. It felt full of sentences that still had something to say.